So good morning. Let's do a quick introduction for me, if I've already lost my pointer. So let's keep with the camping methodology. My name is Julian. As I mentioned, here's a wonderful scout photo from me when I was much, much younger. My background is teaching and learning. I used to be a teacher in the Australian system 7 to 12, teaching modern and ancient history. Anybody here from the schools? Anybody here afraid to put their hand up? Fantastic. And also, I very much became an instructional technologist. I fell in love with the ideas of e-learning going about 12 years ago. Fell into the Moodle world and then came and joined Canvas about 3 years ago. The idea of this session today is kind of talk about some of the challenges of online video and ways that we can go through and face them and hopefully challenge some assumptions. I like when I kind of came up with a title for this session. I wanted to come up with something that was going to be a challenging statement. I think many people will disagree with the statement that video doesn't work in digital classrooms. I want to kind of talk around that. So let's start with the story so far. I say that digital video is failing online classrooms. What I mean by that is I come across many classrooms, my own included when I was still teaching, whereas a way of being able to engage my students, adult or child, I'd go through and put lots of digital video because we all know that students are multimodal, right? They don't all just work with text. They all don't just work with imagery. Many of them are engaged by the video standard. But yet statistics are starting to tell us that it's no longer as engaging as most of us may think. And so that's what I want to do at the beginning of this presentation, is actually bring up some statistics to actually talk about why is this no longer as effective as we may think. And then how can we go through and make it more engaging. Can't hear with the mic. Okay, well I am on. Can turn me up? I have a very loud booming voice, hopefully. This is where I point to my sound man. Okay, is that better? Oh, now all of you can hear my bad jokes. This is going to be brilliant. All right, so, you know, we've been using video as a media type in learning for as long as we've had video. When I was first at school, yeah, I will admit it, I've just hit 40 this year. I remember my teacher wheeling in the old CRT TV on a trolley and pressing play on a VHS tape. Sorry, Australian, we don't know what beta is. All right, so, but you know, we've been doing that since day one. But what's interesting is seeing the statistics around the use of video currently. Can I assume that most of you are using multimedia at the moment? Yeah, I think it's a safe assumption. So let's kind of talk about how pervasive is multimedia at the moment. And by the way, this presentation will be uploaded to my presentation space. So I've put references for where all this data came from. So if you actually want to be able to go through and kind of dig into this data, it's actually really interesting stuff when you get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is that currently 70% of bandwidth of all home usage is currently going into video. 70%. Now, while that does sound like a high number, it's also kind of rigged to a degree because video also takes up a large majority of bandwidth. But the rise of Netflix, you know, the rise of digital streaming media has really gone through and changed how we consume. Separate for that, here we go. Even on mobiles now, 41% of video, 41% of bandwidth is being used for video, even on mobile devices. Now that is new. It's only been the last couple of years that we've finally seen our carriers get up to date. I've only just started using Verizon, and boy, I look forward to going back to my home carrier. That's not, by the way, I'm not meant to be picking on any particular brands. But the idea here is that we're seeing a complete change in use because now our bandwidth can support it. And if we go a step further, YouTube have done their own research, and based on the current trends, even though we're starting to see it staggering and falling down a bit, they're expecting to see 90% of internet traffic in the next couple of years becoming video. So for me to open up with a statement that says that video is no longer working is quite a big call to make when we're seeing numbers like this. So what do I mean by these things? I keep looking down my notes. I'm going to kind of ignore my notes, kind of wing this. If we have a look at current e-learning strategies, and again, we've gone through, and EduCourse did a fantastic study. This came out last year. That currently almost half of the college classes at the moment use video to some degree. Okay, so that's pretty important. And again, most of you would agree with that kind of stat. And actually, we've even done some research. Jared Stein and his research team actually went through all the Canvas courses and looking at it from a data perspective. And we found that on average, the average course has not just one, not just two, but 11.3 videos in the average Canvas course. And by the way, and that's because of two things. One, the Edu App Center, the LTIs make it really easy for you to get video from external sources, and I'm preaching to the choir here, so if you're using YouTube, Khan Academy, SlideShare, all these different sources, so it's much easier. And of course, that video recorder has completely changed how people use the LMS. I mentioned my background was the Moodle world. We never saw this kind of video in the Moodle world, not because the product was bad or evil, but the moment you made that technology transparent, you don't have to learn how to download software to record a video, to turn it into an MP4, to upload it. When it's just a record button, all of a sudden it became engaging. So we're seeing a huge amount of video use. And why are we using video? I think this statement sums it up for me. Content that is engaging gets learned faster and deeper than anything else. If it is engaging, it means I'm wanting to engage with it. I always look at things like game design. I'm a big fan of gamification. Why does gamification work? It's simple. Gamification puts engagement front and center. If they become engaged, they want to investigate, they want to dig deeper, they want to query. And therefore, we get a higher level of learning, an active learning rather than a passive. So I've given you all these stats telling you how good video is and how widely it's being used. So what's wrong at the moment? We've got a whole bunch of challenges. And I don't want to belittle, because most of you know these challenges already, so I'm going to kind of try and skip the basics. Can I assume that you all know that you don't put an hour-long video online, right? I can make those kind of assumptions. I saw a couple of people shake their heads. Why don't we put an hour-long video into an online course? That's right, we lose engagement. And by the way, you might say that, but I have this hour-long lecture. I need to tell you something. Your hour-long lecture is no copy of The Matrix, right? The big movies are engaging because they've got Keanu Reeves in it. All right, so I want to go past some of these basic assumptions. I'm going to assume you know about chunking video. So I'm going to go past that and kind of go a bit further. So what are some of the challenges that we have? I kind of like and I hate this slide. I'm a big hater of the idea of the old World Wide Web. Remember when we first started coming into the Web 2.0 world and everybody's talking about surfing the web? But what I like about the analogy is that our students are trained to be impatient. Interested to ask this, because it's a very well-known statistic, and I wish I could say where it was from. I was trying to Google it, and Google failed me. But do you know, on average, how many clicks a user will make on a page before they give up and move on? The answer is actually about 2.5. So some people said 2, some people said 3. That number's about right. We're trained by the very nature of the web to want things to be instantaneous. And we're easily distracted. How many people here like sending their students to YouTube? Rephrase it, put your hand up. Who here doesn't send their students to YouTube? Okay, why don't we send them to YouTube? Distraction. Because all of a sudden, those really exciting comments, they just grab me right in the feels. And there's all these additional video links, right? But we know these things. So the first challenge that we have is that students have the short attention span. And yes, I have stats. Did you know that the average time you have to engage students with video is 10 seconds? Now that may terrify some of you. And again, I will share this presentation deck. It's all Creative Commons licensed, so please feel free to take and steal and borrow. And I put the references for all of this. But 10 seconds. How many of you use lecture capture tools where you put a nice big welcoming slide with a picture of the college logo and that wonderful welcoming music and the fanfare kicks in. We're 12 seconds in and the lecturer walks on and everybody's disconnected. Right? So you got 10 seconds. But this gets worse, people, because the average attention span in 2015 is only 8 seconds. We have an 8-second attention span. And before you think, but that's all right, we're people, we're good, we're being outdone by goldfish who have a 9-second attention span. Right? Does that make you feel special all of a sudden? So the first reason that video is failing, we have these huge assumptions. It's great. I've been using multimedia for ages. I have chunked my video into 5-minute, 10-minute segments. But the very nature of, our marketing department wants us to put these things in front, and we have the average the lecture recorder, which is automatic. Many of you use the automatic systems, so it's automatically kicked in, and what you're seeing is that. And then you see a lecturer walk in. Like, we all know that. So I bring these up because the first challenge we have is the assumption of how we're using these things. You have got, on average, 8 seconds to engage your users. And also, the very nature of making learning passive changes how it works. Again, I love this study. What we're seeing here is a study where they did a vocabulary test with students. So it was a lecture hall. They presented the information. They did a vocabulary test at the end of it. And the average pass mark was 92%. Now, that very same session was recorded and put online. Another bunch of students watched that segment online. Exact same session, same room, same lecturer, same vocabulary test. 79%. But wait a second, what's changed? 1 minute, we've got the same material, same lecture, same environment. We've just got a video capture over the personal. Here is my take on this. When you do it in a lecture hall, it is not purely a passive experience. Sure, you might have a person down the front who is lecturing, but who is the student speaking to? The people around them, right? And again, I might think most of you guys know this. One of the things about lecture halls that actually still makes them somewhat effective, I'm not a fan of lecture hall, I'll be upfront about that. But one thing that makes it effective is still that connection between people. And in that video, when I watched it, you actually saw the lecturer still reaching out when seeing people being distracted, reaching out and getting their attention back, because it was a two-way mechanism. But online, of course, it's become no longer an active learning experience. What has it become? It's become a what? A passive learning experience. So again, just by taking a session and migrating it into another format doesn't guarantee the same level of assumption, intake of knowledge. So that's the challenge. We know that we need to engage our students. We know that video is pervasive and can work. In fact, there are many things I cannot teach without video, right? Practical subjects. So how can we go through and face some of these challenges of attention span, of context, of engagement? That's what I want to talk about in this session. So what I've done, I really like this, and again, I have to thank Jared Stein for this slide, because really what I was talking about was why has video become so popular? It's actually a cycle. When video first came to the web, it was novel. It was new, it was exciting. Anybody remember the early days of Real Media Player? Oh, I love having a room that's my age. All right, yeah, when the first videos started coming out, right, we went from pages that were static. Let's bring back some horrific memories, people. MySpace, GeoCities. You know, the idea of engaging multimedia was an animated GIF. I love all the people who are nodding in this room as I say these statements. All right, so we then started seeing the early video format starting to come through. Real Media was the first one that really started to make streaming media mainstream. So it became novel. And when it's novel, it's engaging. That's why as teachers, as lecturers, we also try and bring new and exciting things to our classrooms, don't we? Because if it's new, it's exciting, it engages my audience. And when it's engaging, it becomes successful because the student is engaged, they want to know more. So again, as lecturers, as teachers, we constantly try and find these new mechanisms. And again, I liked Angela's talk this morning. Lots of what she was talking about are engagement mechanisms that she's using to try and engage kids, right? But here's the problem. And so if it's successful, it becomes widely adopted. YouTube, classic case in point. YouTube quite literally took over the world in less than a year. Did anybody here know how old YouTube is? 5 years. That's it. You kind of think, YouTube kind of feels like it's been around forever, right? It is a 5-year-old standard. And it has taken over the world. In fact, it's taking over the world in one. So, we see this cycle. But here's the problem. Because it gets so widely adopted, video is no longer novel. It becomes a victim of its own success. It's no longer that new, funky, exciting thing. It's, oh, look, it's another video. And that means it's no longer intrinsically engaging. Now again, big assumptions. You might have a fantastic lecturer or a fantastic teacher. Your content could be widely exciting. I don't want to make any particular judgments on you or your faculty staff. But I have watched a few videos of faculty staff. Again, I'm loving the people who are nodding. So how do we fix this? Well, here's the thing. Education philosophy, pedagogy, methodology has already given us most of our answers. Effective learning is more than just consumption. Would you guys agree with that statement? But why in the e-learning space do we create areas that are mostly purely consumption? Again, I don't want you to dob yourself in, so I want you to raise a hand if you know somebody who has a course like this. PDF quiz, video, PDF quiz. Who has a friend who has a course like that? We have been doing e-learning for nearly a decade, people, and we are still creating purely consumption-based courseware. Who here would ever walk into a lecture hall, into a classroom and go, okay, I've got 5 documents up the front, here's a quiz, I'll see you guys next week. You'd never think of it. You think it's a joke as I say it, but yet in online learning, it is still considered a standard to create courseware that way. Oh, but that's all right, we've added video. That's going to make it more engaging. Yay! I just realised I sound like Jim Jeffries. Jeez. So the first part of the answer is that we need to make it so it's no longer just about consumption. Second part of the answer, consuming and reviewing is not active learning. I was setting you up earlier. I talk a lot when I do education talks around what is the difference between active and passive learning. Passive learning is not necessarily a bad or an evil thing. Like all styles, it comes down to right tool, right time, right choice, right audience, okay? But active learning always gets a student to integrate more and to interact more with content. So we know this. Pedagogically, we know this. So how can we apply this? Well, what if we could find a way to make video interactive? And here's the thing. There is one market that is always ahead of education. Or what am I saying? There's about 102 different markets that are usually ahead of education. But not the point I'm trying to make right now. One of the biggest groups that focuses on engagement, usually at our detriment, is the advertising industry. Okay? Advertising has been trying to find ways to get you to click on their link for the past 10 years. And again, you all know this. And again, this is an international problem. Okay, so first of all, we used to get banners across pages. You know, back in the old days of GeoCities, everything had a banner, everything had a little click link box. But then what happened after a year? Did you guys actually just stop seeing banners? A study was done only about 6 years ago, and again, I couldn't find it. I'm going to try and find it. I'll add it to this presentation afterwards. That the average user no longer sees the banner. It's there, but you don't see it. You have mentally blocked it out, you just scroll past. Okay, so they started doing new things. A couple of years ago, we suddenly saw the rise on websites of overlay video. Don't we love that? Where you're watching, reading a news page or on CNN, and all of a sudden this video fades up showing a Tucson driving across the ranges. Right, they started going, well, you know, banners are no longer engaging, they're no longer novel, so we're going to find ways of getting you engaged. Let's use video. But guess what's happened? No one's watching those either. And so one of the people I like to highlight, one of the organisations that's really come up with an answer towards trying to make these things engaging again, was Facebook. Are you guys all aware of 360 video? I'll show an example for those who aren't. Just realised I've got to leave my presentation here, so I've got a link here. The idea of 360 video is to take video and make it an interactive experience. And it's not going to work on this machine. That is awful. This is what happens when you don't present on your own machines. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to try and describe it for those of you who haven't seen it before. Yay! The idea of 360-degree video, and this is where the technology is going now, they record the video with special cameras. And as a user, you're no longer a passive passenger on the process. You can now spin and turn that camera anywhere you want as you are watching the video. You can go through and focus on every bit. The video is filmed in full 360-degree vision. So why has this become popular? The user feels an active participant in the process. And we're seeing hundreds of advertising campaigns now using it. Zoolander, did anybody see the Zoolander video that they came out? One of the ways they promoted Zoolander 2 was they actually filmed Zoolander and Hansel. Does anybody here know Hansel? He's my favourite. They were doing a live fashion show, and they recorded the entire thing in 360 video, which meant that as the engaged viewer, not only could I watch these two men strutting their stuff, because I love to watch a man strut, I am from Sydney, but on top of it, that wasn't a joke. What are you saying about people from Sydney? That's right, I already insulted Canada, it's about time I got it back. But then also what I could do is I could move my camera and see how the audience was engaged with Hansel and Zoolander. And I could go through and see, oh, look, there's the evil villain who's sitting over there scheming. I, of a sudden, became an active participant. So we're seeing the advertising industry getting on top of this. Even YouTube started to go through and come up with their own answers. Now, their answer is only part of the way. Because what they started doing, oh, I won't bother bringing it up, we don't need to see it, you guys all know YouTube, is they went, well, what we're going to do to make it engaging again is add the ability to comment. Now, I'm not here to talk about the kinds of comments we see on YouTube. That's another problem altogether. But it doesn't work because the comments are still passive. What do I mean by that? I can watch the video on YouTube, but can I see those comments while I'm watching the video? What do I have to do to be able to see the comments? I'm no longer engaged with the video. So now I'm typing in a whole bunch of comments. What's now happened to the user? I'm distracted. So in fact, we often see that once they go into comments, they don't go back to the video because, well, YouTube comments are another thing altogether and they can become very engaging in many different ways. So while we're seeing different mechanisms, they're not quite there. So here's where I come up to the thing. Now, I intentionally did not want to list this as an ARC talk, but I want to show you guys ARC. Have you guys had a chance to see ARC yet? Only a couple of people. The idea of ARC was, again, at InstCon16 we realised there was this challenge occurring, that people weren't becoming engaged with video. We didn't want to just make another video repository. If you want a video repository, there are hundreds of various applications out there. Our challenge was to find a way to how can we try and take video, make it novel again, make it intrinsically engaging. And that's what we did with ARC. And now I'm really, really paranoid about what's going to happen when I try and click on the link. Well, here we go. Just bear with me for a second. It's really hard when I'm not mirroring my screen, so let's mirror. Now, by the way, I'm not here to give you guys a whole full demo of ARC. If you want to go see a full demo, please head out the video. Sorry, I can't speak at the moment. The ARC tent to go into detail. But I want to show you the idea around ARC and how we're trying to use it to make video engaging. This here is an example of a course. Welcome to Harry Potter's school, the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You have to have fun with demo courses, people. In it, I have embedded a video. And underneath it are comments. You may say that this does not look very different to YouTube, and at a surface level, you would be right. So what have we done that's different? Let me go through, go full screen, and play the video.
The ability to make objects fly. Do you all have your feathers? Good. Now, don't forget the nice wrist movement we've been practicing.
As the video is playing,
the swish
student comments are actually appearing up on the video itself.
Swish.
So here we've got other comments that pop up.
Good. Oh, and
how you hold the wand is important. I can actually not just be watching the video, but I'm also seeing the other students' comments. And as I'm here, I can also type in a comment on the fly, comment, and it will immediately go through and add it directly there. Now, the idea behind this is not actually inventing something particularly new. Video and video commenting is not new. But the idea of being able to bring it all together so that it happens on the one screen, so we don't get distractions, so we don't get that having to move around, it actually makes it more of an active process. Now, don't get me wrong. You may not want to have to scrub through the video to find people's comments. That's why underneath we've also got the typical comment feed where I can go through, that's not very nice, I love this one, she always has her feather, how you hold wand's important. Click takes me straight to the wand holding area. So it's allowing us to go through and make this an engaging process again. But on top of that, the other thing that we recognize is the importance of the ability for a lecturer or a teacher to keep iterating their content. I think this is critical. I know that different organisations have different processes around how they lock content or have academically validated it. Me, personally, be very careful because I'm not speaking on behalf of instructor, this is me. I think content should constantly be shifting. Every cohort is different. Every lecturer is different. The idea that one courseware fits all, I'm glad I'm only seeing a couple people shaking their heads, it doesn't work. So one of the great ways we do this is we constantly iterate our content. Face-to-face, you often do this without thinking about it, don't you? If I'm sitting here and I'm seeing people start to doze off, I will quickly change tack. Right, that's just what we do as teachers. Online, well, first of all, how do we see people dozing off? But then secondly, if we can see that, how do we change tack? Well, we can see people dozing off. We have analytics, don't we? We've got data. I can see what people are engaged with. Well, I can see how many people clicked on this link, how many people visited this page, how many discussion posts occurred. Excuse me. But with video, how many people watched it? So this is the other thing that ARC does. What ARC also does, it allows me to see where the video is being watched. Which part of the video was engaging to the student? Which one wasn't? In fact, as I go through here, I click, I can actually see which part of the video these particular students actually viewed. And I've actually been experimenting with this in some of my own courseware. And it's great, because what I see is, okay, my students are still passing their final exam, or they're passing, I've got learning quizzes that I use just as like litmus tests on knowledge. So they're not formal assessment, but I put them there to say how are my students participating and how are they getting context. So I'll put a video up, and often I'll put like a little, I hate saying the word practice quiz, but I guess that's the best word to use from a Canvas perspective. And my students are skipping all around the video, but yet still passing the test. So I can come in here and go, well, actually, the students are all skipping the first minute. And none of them watched past the third minute. Allow me to come in and, well, they're getting the knowledge that they need. They're skipping these elements of the video. Maybe I don't need those bits of the video. And I can trim it down. I can iterate my content because we're now providing you live statistics on video use. This is our way of finding how can we make video engaging again. And as part of that, it's also about trying to make it novel. Don't get me wrong, will students go a bit nuts on comments? Let's be honest, hopefully yes. Are they all going to be on target? Probably no. But again, the beautiful thing about it is tied to their Canvas login. A disadvantage of YouTube is that you have no idea who's actually commenting, do we? They're anonymous accounts. And under anonymity, people will say anything. We've got the same issue with Twitter, we've got the same issue with Facebook, we have the issues with YouTube. But the great thing about our classroom environments is we're actually tied to our Canvas accounts. So it means, as you saw, as the video was playing, not only does it show the comment, so I've got to zoom back out, it's showing their name and their picture next to it. So all of a sudden, the student is accountable for their words. Does that make things more relevant from a student perspective? It doesn't make them all angels. I'm not going to pretend it does, but when all of a sudden the anonymity is gone behind it, we find far more constructive uses of these. So ARC, as you're probably aware, we haven't released ARC yet. What we're really looking to do right now is get more feedback. How do these tools work for you? The idea of this session is not to go deep dive into ARC. There are lots of other cool things that are in ARC that I'm not here to show about. And the idea of this session, the reason I didn't put ARC in the title was actually to talk about the challenges, to kind of challenge some of your thoughts on video. And hopefully, many of you who disagreed with my statement at the beginning, because I know many of you would, and I wrote that intentionally, how video is failing our classroom. But the stats are there, the numbers are there. I'd urge you to actually go back and look at your logs, actually find out how your video is actually being utilised. I think you'll be shocked. And if you're interested in ARC, check out the ARC tent. They can give you a demo. They can talk in far more detail over. If you want to come up to me and ask questions afterwards, I'm happy to do that as well. But I'm just about out of time. So what I want to do for the last few minutes is do some Q&A. Now, if you've got a question, by the way, ask you to put your hand up because we've got people with a microphone who'll be able to run out. Who has the microphone, by the way? Great. So if you put your hand up, the reason we're using microphones, this is being recorded, so that means that people can hear the question. So a microphone will come out in a second, and I'm happy to answer what I can. So just hand it to people who've got their hand.
Is it on? So you showed 360 video and showed how it was engaging. Is ARC going to be able to handle that? Because that's one thing in the education arena. There isn't really a platform outside of YouTube that can handle 360 video.
Kind of things come onto the education space as well. I don't have a direct answer for that question. I think that's, again, what's going to happen is we're going to start seeing more of these tools. People would have the large amounts of money, like the advertising industry and so forth, are coming up with these cool tools. What will happen is they're going to become more and more affordable and come into our classroom spaces. So as for how that will happen with things like ARC, I couldn't give you an answer yet. But what I think very strongly will happen is that these larger industries will make these technologies cheaper and easier. And that will then start seeing, well, standards being made that will then allow us to use them in our system. So I know that's not really an answer, but it's the best one I can give. Hands are up. Who's got the mic? I've got a helper, hopefully. Can you just pass the mic around for me? Got a hand down here. I see the hand over here as well. We'll do that one next. Yes?
I was wondering what your impression is of quizzing in videos and maybe pass, and so students make long answers and go back.
So again, I don't have data. I've got personal experience. I love quizzes in video. There are certain things that I can only demonstrate effectively with video. I use small video snippets in, I'd say, every second quiz that I build. Again, it's usually about small snippets, very particular actions. But yeah, personally, I'm a big fan of video and quiz. In fact, I'm a big fan of video everywhere. I use videos in discussions, I use videos in quizzes, I use videos in assessment. But again, it's about what am I assessing and what's the best tool for the job. But yeah, personally, I'm a big fan.
Is ARC going to be part of the plan?
Yeah, so ARC works as an LTI tool. So anywhere you have a text box, let me just edit this. This here is just a page. So anywhere you have a text box, you have ARC, which brings up your entire library, or it needs click and drag to bring video into ARC. So yes, you can use it in any, well, it's being an LTI, you can use it anywhere you've got a text editor. So yeah, it goes throughout the entire system. Sorry, there was another hand. There's a couple over here. So I know it's awkward with the mic, but because we're recording this, we want to make sure that people in the recording hear the questions.
Okay, so my question is, how is ARC going to handle captioning? And my other comment would be, I saw the comments popping at the bottom. Is that going to cover the captioning?
Two good questions. The first thing is that we do support captioning. Closed caption is fully supported in ARC. As a teacher, once you've uploaded the video in, we've got closed captioning. We can just upload your closed caption file. So we fully support closed caption. As for the second question, I don't have an answer, but if you head up the ARC tent, they might have one for you. Just behind.
So,
and where did the mic go?
I have the mic.
Here? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things with social annotation, which this in many ways is that you don't necessarily get a lot of pedagogical value from the reactive comments. So as someone's watching something, you get things like, I totally agree with this. Anyone who's had issues with text analysis or discussion boards knows that simply reacting to something has limited pedagogical value. So I would challenge your underlying premise that this has some great pedagogical value, because I don't know that it really will. That's not to say that I'm not appreciative of the tool. I just question the premise, the assumption. And the other thing you mentioned earlier was that 92% of the face-to-face students, they got a 92 as an average, and then 79% on the other. But that you didn't mention that every single variable was controlled for. So it's a specious example. So that's another thing I would challenge about your presentation.
No,
because,
challenge accepted.
So anyway, sorry.
No, that's right. I think the first comment's really important, though, and I actually want to say I wholeheartedly agree. This is just a tool. It itself doesn't provide any pedagogical value, and to be honest, neither does Canvas. It is just a tool. It's how you utilize that tool, the task that you create around it. Would I ever just put up an ARC video and say, random comment, please? I wouldn't. I would actually go through and say, okay, here's a task. Your task is to identify which parts of this video you saw X happening, or I would actually put a framework around it. So now, first of all, I want to make sure I completely agree with that first point. Like all tools, they can be used well, they can be used badly. The cohort that's also interacting with it may utilize it different ways. And as a lecturer, as a teacher, as an instructional designer, that's up to us to figure out which tool is best for that job. So I just want to make sure I actually completely wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I have, even in the demo phase, seen ARC used well, and I have seen ARC used badly. As a second part, when I do a presentation like this, I don't have a lot of time to go through all the variables. I think that's also a very valid point. There's a lot more to it, which is why I've made sure I actually link to the references. Please follow that, because it actually does go into a lot more detail into the analytics and the variables, and this will be up on the site for you to dig deep into. When I'm up here with only 10 minutes, I had to condense. No, but thank you, they're both very valid points. Thank you for that. I've only got a couple minutes left, so you got a...
Yeah, I did a course in Coursera, and the video tool in that allowed us to stop the video and ask questions of the students, and they could take a quiz right there if they wanted to, or just answer a question and go on. Is there any plan for doing that down the road?
Again, I don't feel best placed for that. We've got lots of plans. We're constantly scheming. And the idea of us bringing ARC to this event is to actually get your feedback. So me personally, I'm not involved in the ARC development team. So I know some things they're working on, but I don't feel qualified to answer. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is go to the ARC team, because that's the kind of feedback they're wanting to determine where they evolve the product. So yeah, please do take that to the ARC tent. Was there a question here?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could do subtitles in other languages or just only closed captioning.
Excuse me. Currently, it's only closed caption. Again, I don't know about future plans, because we do have a strong focus on international, as you're probably aware. We have a Sydney office, Hong Kong office. We've got an office in South America now. So it's something that I would not be surprised to see coming, but right now it's just closed caption. Microphone has gone where? Up the back. I'll just do this. Actually, I won't get that close and personal. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I like the interaction with it. But what happens if you got a class of 700 students? You got a full comments on the screen. How do you handle that?
Fantastic question. Two parts answer to it. First of all, right tool for right job. With large cohorts, you have to think very carefully about the kind of tools that you use altogether. This will recognize sections. So if you're using sectioning to break students up into smaller groups, like intake groups or class groups, then this will actually recognize those sections and break them up into those smaller groups. But you are right. If you have, let's say, 100 plus students, this may not be the most effective tool. So again, right tool for right job. This is built for the interaction, and as such, yeah, you've got to choose carefully. All right, look, I'm out of time. The next group's coming in. Thank you very much. Please hunt me down for questions, and enjoy the rest of camp.